Hello, choir singers and Jamulus users. I have a short video about using multiple tracks in Reaper and sending them into multiple clients in Jamulus. For instance, for using in choral practice, then sopranos can hear their soprano part played by a Midi and altos can hear an alto part. And of course, the advantage is that each can shift the levels according to their own wishes and at the same time hear the rest of the choir, just like somebody playing along with you to help you while you're singing in your choir. Let's go to share. So we're going to use Reaper and reroute to get everything into Jamulus. That will look something like this. I'll expand it in a minute. We have Reaper playing MIDI files. Each channel is converted to audio and then routed into reroute to get it into Jamulus. And in Jamulus, then you have each channel and you can give each channel the level you desire for playing. Okay, what are we gonna need? I'm gonna put myself over there. You're going to use a MIDI file. You can have a ready-made MIDI file or make your own and import that MIDI file into Reaper and then install and use a VST instrument to play that MIDI and so that it's converted to live audio and that MIDI will be sent into Jamulus using reroute. Of course, instead of a MIDI, you can also record a multi-track which each part sung live into Reaper and then each part played separately into Jamulus. It's the same principle, just I'm using MIDI files. I think it saves time. And then we're gonna open several Jamulus clients, and of course each Jamulus client can use a different INI file to keep the settings used last time. And of course, don't use it every time in the rehearsal, but just to study parts and then sing together again or split into groups in different choir rooms. You can also use that method. Okay, we're going to go to Reaper. You have an empty channel, or you can say new project. And I'm not going to send any signal out. So I have, I'm not intending to get any channels back into Reaper because I'm just using Reaper to send the channels into Jamulus and use a different client and a different interface to connect myself to Jamulus. So when I'm gonna import a MIDI, it's quite easy. I take a MIDI and just drag and drop it into Reaper. It expands into new MIDI tracks, but I'm also importing the tempo. And if you are importing another MIDI file over the first MIDI file, sometimes the tempo is retained and you have to manually delete it. Okay, now we have different channels in MIDI. So we have a soprano, alto, tenor, bass, a piano, a complement, and a click track. I found out that the click track can be practical to use because the just the MIDI itself is sometimes not clear enough to keep in tempo, so the choir will be slowing down and the click track will help to keep everybody in tempo. Okay, when I'm playing this, you won't be hearing anything because you're just getting the MIDI information. You see the small yellow stripes. Just MIDI. So the MIDI will need to be converted to audio. We do that using a VST instrument. I'm using bass MIDI because it's relatively simple and therefore also fast, and it's the quality is good enough for me. So double click the virtual instrument. It might be handy to choose a different channel for every channel that you're sending so that there are no conflicts, but for the rest you can leave it as it is because it will set the instrument used in a MIDI file. So now we get some MIDI play. You can hear the soprano part if I'm right. Of course, that has to be sent into Jamulus. Jamulus doesn't use normal audio. You have to use SEO or in Windows or Core Audio in Apple. And so we're going to use a hardware output. You can do it over here. You can also choose the route button and just drag it up a little bit. Add a new hardware output, and I'm going to choose reroute 1 and reroute 2. It will be a stereo channel, but that's no problem, because if you set Jamulus to mono, it will just be one channel, and you can only choose double channels over here. For master send, if you're using Reaper also for input, then you want to tick off, untick the master send, because otherwise you will hear your direct signal instead of something coming back from the server. But in this case, I only want to send it, and I'm connecting through another device, so I'll leave the master send for me on, and we can still hear something. So I take the next part, I choose the next channel, and also choose another hardware output, in this case reroute 3 and 4, because 1 and 2 are already used for the soprano. And this way I can do all the channels. I've of course already done that before, and I won't save it. Here I have a ready-made MIDI, and now when I'm playing, you hear all the different channels and the click track in the background. Good. Now we're going to import that into Jamulus. So I open a Jamulus client, and I need to stop share for a moment. So I have my Jamulus clients over here, and when I want to make the soprano part heard in Jamulus, I'm going to connect to reroute, not one of the interfaces, but reroute, and use the reroute Reaper client 1 and 2 to get a signal in. Output channel doesn't matter because we're not using the output. For jitter buffer, it can be handy to put it way up, because that way you will be sure that there's no interference, and if everybody is using to the signal coming back from Jamulus, you won't have differences in timing. I'm going to set this to mono and the quality to normal, because we won't need stereo, and it will save bandwidth when connecting to my server. Now we are going to connect to a server. Yes. Okay, if we want to have different channels for the different voices, it might be handy to have also different Jamulus clients already ready-made. So what I'm doing is using different ini files for every time, for every different Jamulus client that I'm using. So when you're looking for your Jamulus ini file, you'll find that, I think, in application data and roaming, and then you go to Jamulus, and then in your own user account, of course, and there you find jamulus.ini. Copy that to another folder, and you can make something like this, different Jamulus clients. You just copy them and rename, copy, rename, copy, rename, and then you can modify each one to suit your needs. So I have a soprano client, an alto client, a tenor client, a bass client, and an extra client. Okay, you'll find them over here. I'm opening the soprano, and again my head is in the way, but I can connect it, and I connect it to, for instance, a pop choir, and then we are not seeing anything because Reaper isn't playing. And that's an interesting feature, but because every time Reaper is not playing, the Jamulus client disappears. But now I've started it, and you can see the Jamulus client's working. Okay, then I can start the other client. Of course, with each client I set the profile differently. I call this one Midi alto, and I gave a different symbol for streaming. And here I'm connecting to reroute client 3 and 4, also again on mono and low. I'm gonna switch this a little softer so you can still hear me. And I can start another one. And also connect it. I didn't connect the alto, I think. No. Gonna connect the alto too. So we always have a choir. Gonna connect to the bass part. Move my head again. My head seems to be always be in the way. Yes, now I have a full choir. And then finally we're gonna add the extra channel, and now we have 5 channels running, and of course every choir member can suit that to their own needs. So soprano can put the soprano part up and perhaps a little bit of accompaniment with click track, and the other parts low. You can also of course mute other choristers. Just I'm again a little bit against using mute, because you won't hear anything anymore, and if somebody bothers you, it will be enough to set them at a low level instead of mute them. Okay, so finally, using it in rehearsal, when you're going to use this, just of course use it sparsely, because it's not much fun using a MIDI all the time, but it can help you in the first steps of the process, getting you to know your parts and then singing together again, or going into different Jamulus rooms to rehearse your own part. Have fun, and I hope that clarifies it a little bit. Thank you.